Well, I want to go over one little aspect of something a lot of people don't think of. Actually, the president is not exactly the commander in chief as like a de facto position. And I know they interpret the Constitution as that way because in Article 2, Section 2, it says the president shall be the commander in chief of the Army and the Navy of the United States and the militia of the several states. Then it says, when called into the actual service of the United States. See, it's not like it's a de facto position where he gets elected president, he's in charge of all the Army and the Navy. Not exactly. It's when he gets called into service. That's actually per the Constitution. And see, where they've gotten away from it is almost like, the president, whoever's elected president is actually elected by, the big money powers that be. Plus, he can also has the treaty making powers. The United States, which also, he can ratify the treaties of the Senate that are made by 2/3 of the Senate, which can also supersede the laws of the United States. But he's not the director or the emperor of all the armed forces, despite what all the career officers will tell you. He's not. Not by the Constitution. Unfortunately, we have a lot of direct deposit careerists that will not ever go against that deal in a million years because they know where their money comes from. Uncle Sam, right? But, it says it right there. Article 2, Section 2. Yes, it says he's the president shall be the commander-in-chief of the Army, the Navy of the United States, and of the militia of the several states, when called into actual service of the United States. In other words, when there's a war, when called into the service of the actual service of the United States, when called into service, when is there a commander-in-chief necessary when there's a war? Who actually declares war? The Congress, right? See what the problem is? It's like we got dictator guy now, almost like, but the problem I think even with Obama more than anything is himself. As far as like us getting away from this principle, what the Constitution actually says, and one problem with Obama himself, it's like, I swear, he doesn't seem like he wants to be in that position at all. And that's very, very, very dangerous for all the people that are in uniform. Because he just does not want to, do the duty of his office. He just doesn't want to perform the duties of his office. It seems like he has no interest in performing the duties of his office. Where, this is where, I don't like Vladimir Putin, but it seems like that guy actually has a passion for what he's doing, even though I know he's an egomaniac dictator and all that type of stuff. He at least has his passion for what he's doing. He's got a big ego, but he has a passion for what he's doing. And, but with it's with Obama, he's like, he's just there. He's just there. He's like, he wanted to get elected, he wanted to be president, and now he's in the job, and he's like, I don't want the job no more. Can't wait till the thing's over with. That's what he seems like. And, here's another clause, Section 3 of Article 2. Treason against the United States shall consist only in levying war against them or adhering to their enemies, giving them aid and comfort. Now, how many times did they interpret treason as bucking the powers, the domestic powers that be? In other words, if you disagree with something, some policy, what's going on in Washington, D.C., it's like you're a traitor, right? A traitor? You're not a traitor. Actually, I could state, it's like the one president we actually had before that was clear-cut as being a traitor was, I guess, Bill Clinton before he got elected to second term, where the campaign contributions for basically sending missile technology to China. You remember that deal? I mean, come on, And actually, that deal with China could have been over with a long, long time ago if Douglas MacArthur was allowed to do his job. We had the Korean War. They were actually fighting Chinese nationals in Korea. That's why it was going on so long. Douglas MacArthur should have been allowed to go in. Well, see, the deal is, one major arm of the New World Order and globalism always has been communism, right? That's what it's always been. That's why he wasn't allowed to do it. Too bad he said, "To hell with you jerks, I'm going to do it anyway." You know, I mean, I don't know what would have happened then, because the problem is, I guess, if that happens, you might have major division in the armed forces and turmoil and maybe even domestic revolution and conflict. And that's not good either, because that was another problem that brings down empires, you know, in a lot of ways. But there's a game going on here, and actually the Constitution itself pretty much will knock out the game of the globalists all the way. The Constitution of the United States itself, especially the Bill of Rights, is actually a major, major stumbling block to the New World Order, to the max. You know, it's like, what bugs me the most is like, you know, it's like, I don't know what the hell to do about this deal either, you know? But the military, as you higher up you go, it's an absolute fact. The more they ignore stuff like this that's inconvenient for their career, they will just turn it off. They get focused someplace else. That's what I don't like about the yo-yos in the military, the careerists. That's exactly what they do. And this is a major point, because as military, what you're really supposed to do is you don't adhere to some dictator or the commander-in-chief. Because actually, if you're going to do that, I guess you would adhere to the general instead of the president, right? Because the president's not supposed to be the commander-in-chief unless he's called into actual service, which means declaration of war by the Congress, or in times of national emergency. You know, they try to make it look like we got a national emergency at all times, where there's always domestic terrorism or something, you know. Hey, you're a domestic terrorist. That's a national emergency, so we got to have, you know, great powers to take care of that and stuff. Well, he's not the commander-in-chief, basically. That's what it is. You see, like, somebody becomes elected as the president of the United States, they're not the commander-in-chief until they're actually called into service, or until there's actually this big national emergency. And, you know, this actually goes along with kind of like the old Roman Republic before it, you know, disintegrated, I guess you would call it. It became an empire. You know, and the Roman Empire actually got bigger and stronger after the Roman Republic was over with. But it was actually the inner pillars of it was already decaying for that reason, that because the Republic was gone. They used to elect the proconsul as like the strong leader to lead the military in times of crisis. That's what they used to do. And that's basically what the Constitution is saying here. The president is not the commander-in-chief until such time as when he's actually called into the service of the United States. Which doesn't mean as soon as he gets elected. That doesn't mean that. And who calls him into the service of the United States? The Congress. The ones that we elect every 2 years. I'd like to see Ron Paul say this once in a while. Because you know what? Even if he said this, that would be going too far for him. You know, he likes to say all this huggy-feely stuff and talk all this crap, whatever. You know, I don't want to say too bad. But you know what I mean? He likes to talk all this stuff about, we're not here to the... Yeah, I tell you what, if he was laying it out like this, you know, even if it's just words, they wouldn't like it. They wouldn't like it. Because I think he's just another game going on too. Ron Paul himself. And, you know, I know he's retired now, and you got Rand Paul in there talking about the drones and stuff. You know, they're flying over us and stuff, but it's nothing. It doesn't mean nothing. But, you know, if anybody with a brain in the military, I guess, you know, sees this video, the Constitution was written this way for a reason. The Americans don't elect a dictator to be in charge in the military. The main power is always in the hands of the Congress, particularly in the body called the House of Representatives, where all laws start and where the power of the money or power to coin money and the power to purse and the power to appropriate money comes from the House of Representatives. Because even if they see, they make the laws, but if the laws are being like enforced selectively by the commander-in-chief or whatever you want to call them, the executive branch, the Congress can defund different things. They could defund things through the appropriations committees, right? So the power to the people is actually in your elected representatives that we elect every 2 years, not every 4 years, like the president. Main problem is you're not adhering to the Constitution. Got to put representatives in there that are always going to adhere to the Constitution, no matter what. Then the problems are going to go away. It's not impossible to do. Not at all. Not impossible to do at all. Problem is, people are defeated before they even freaking get started. That's your freaking problem. Of the people that even realize the problem, they're defeated before they even get started. And, I think a lot of the alternative media is actually being, financed by or pushed by the powers that be, if you want to call it, to keep your giddy minds focused in on stuff that is not going to be constructive. Problem's not the United States. Not at all. You got to go back to what the hell the roots are in the United States. That's the real United States. It's not the United States itself. The real New World Order wants the United States destroyed. They want the United States people to turn against the United States because they've realized the actual Constitution and the Bill of Rights that we got embodied in the real law of the United States is the biggest stumbling block they got right there. They know it too. They know it. So they play games and they say, well, we got, the presidency all rigged because we put up the Democrats and the Republicans, each one of them's put up by big money. I don't vote for either a Republican or a Democrat. I don't vote for the lesser of two evils amongst those two. I take a third party. To hell with them. But of the few people that actually vote, which is in a minority, you got less than 1% even doing that. Where they're not even taking the red team or the blue team. That's why the situation's so bad. You can say, yeah, the voting's rigged and stuff. But, if you went around and said everybody starts voting for somebody that's not Republican or Democrat, and you got 95% of the people that are eligible to vote, and all of a sudden a Democrat well, you know what? They wouldn't be able to cover that up if it was that lopsided. They can't cover that up. So, you got the power to do it, but nobody wants to do it because what they want to do is they want to have a strong leader fix all the problems for. And therein lies the problem with democracy, because we don't have a democracy, but we're turning it into a democracy. We weren't founded as a democracy. Constitutional republic's what we were founded as, and the Constitution's the number one block that's against the New World Order. But we're developing into a democracy which will turn into a dictatorship and a half. That's what it always breaks down to. And that's one of the things how they're doing it too. The commander-in-chief is not the president of the United States when he just gets elected. He becomes the president. The president becomes the commander-in-chief when called into the actual service of the United States. When he's called into service in the United States, it's by act of Congress, act of war, or if it's an extreme dire emergency where something happened right away that he, didn't have time to, it just happened overnight, then he's the commander-in-chief. But he's not commander-in-chief by default of just getting elected. You see, that's a bastardization, an interpretation of the Constitution that's deliberately being portrayed and deliberately being going along with by our military leaders, because they got enough brains to freaking read simple language. The Constitution isn't written in some type of language that is so extremely difficult to interpret that you need 12 law degrees to interpret it. It's in plain language. It's written a certain way for a certain reason. They choose to ignore what is inconvenient to their careers. Anyway, I figured put this out because it's not impossible to fix. It's just that you just gotta, it just takes a lot of people doing their actions. That's really what it is. It's not going to be like big drama. Oh, somebody's going to come along and fix it for us. No, just everybody has to understand what the deal is, and no yo-yo getting Washington is like, an emperor. They got to function, and actually the main power belongs in the House of Representatives. Actually, Obama has been overstepping that power with his appointees and things like that. But that's all part of the game. It's all part of the New World Order game. It's not just him. It's always they've been trying to push more and more power into the presidency, because having the power into the main power into the House of Representatives, which we elect every 2 years, that control the money, control the appropriations, where all the laws start, is a major stumbling block to the New World Order. And see, this is one of the reasons the New World Order wants you to get all down on the United States and want the whole world to be attacking the United States, because the United States is the number one problem to the New World Order. That's really what it is. People aren't seeing that angle. So, anyway, I just want to put this out because I thought it was kind of interesting that a lot of people don't even look at it that way. They just make an automatic assumption. When such and such, whoever the hell it is, it could be George Bush, it could be President JFK, John F. Kennedy, or whatever it is. I mean, anybody, you know what I mean? It could be somebody that used to be a 5-star general, like Eisenhower, right? It could be somebody like him, right? As soon as he gets elected, he walks into the White House. That does not make him the commander-in-chief by the law of the Constitution of the United States. It is when he is called into the actual service of the United States, which means when there's a war declared by the Congress. It's a point that it will always be ignored by the careerist and direct deposit people in a green uniform, because it's an inconvenient truth. And they will just focus in on other areas. They're not going to save us. It's the average person that's going to do it. All right, just figured I'd put this out because I think it's worth putting out.